Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Productions channel here at YouTube. And welcome to, of course, another 70's hard and heavy video. And of course is probably one. This is the second to last. Not the last, but definitely the video after this one will be the last of the actual 70's hard and heavy videos for this month, because this was the last week for sure. So, with that, this of course, this video here definitely focuses more on 1980s bands that at least have a 70s sound. While some of these bands, though, in this one were formed in the 1970s. Some of these bands actually had release back in the 1970s, but since I don't own that, this is the one I'll definitely show. But still, it is a worthy one to talk about for those definitely that like that 70s hard and heavy sound. So without further ado, let's definitely get right in. This first one comes from Belgium, or is Killer, with of course their debut Ready for Hell. Now, Paul Van Camp, before Killer, actually did have a band back in the 1970s. They were called Mothers of Track. And for the most part, they released a lot of like 7" and so on, dating all the way back to 1975. The first Mother of the Track full-length album, which I actually got their Discogs page up here, Electric Glide, was actually released in 1979, just a year before this was actually released. And of course, Mothers of Track ended up getting disbanded by Paul Van Camp, and then ended up forming Killer, and then released Ready for Hell in the year after. So basically making Ready for Hell sounding almost more like a follow-up to that debut album, which I'm definitely looking out for. I have yet to actually find a copy of that debut from Mothers of Track, Electric Glide. So with that, definitely it's a bit more of a different sound compared to the subsequent releases, which were a lot heavier. This one definitely has more of a 70s hard rock sound, and it really does say, if you were to listen to the Mothers of Track album, this sound really just sounds like a follow-up to it, and definitely not a bad album. Definitely not the greatest album, though, from Killer, but it is, though, at least a good album, I do say. So, with that, I'll definitely be playing you a sample here, then I'll get into the next album here. So with that, I hope you enjoy. Alright, next, second album here, though definitely the two albums here that I have, even though I'm not going to be showing both, only spotlighting one album, but this is a 2-disc compilation. This, of course, is Legend, which, of course, were a new wave of British heavy metal band, and of course, the album I'm actually spotlighting is their debut, which was that one right there. Probably because of the fact is, I think it's like, even though both these two albums here, both the Legend debut and of course Death in the Nursery, definitely have a bit of a 70s sound. Definitely a lot, if you were to really listen to a couple of new wave or British metal bands, sure they will have a bit of that 70s influence, but for the most part they definitely did kind of make their own sound. But to me, I thought Legend were probably we're definitely one of the few more 70s sounding new wave or British heavy metal bands. So with that, their debut, I think, is probably the most. It definitely has a much more of a doomier feel to, even at times a little bit progressive sounding, that one. This was songs such as Hiroshima. It's probably definitely the one song that really kind of has that. So I think that'll be the song that I spotlight here. So with that, hope you enjoy the sample and everything. So with that, I'm going to be getting into the next album. So like again, enjoy.
But it had to be done. The pigs all cried. We tried to warn them. The pigs all cried. The children born with its crown. Genetic disease, the eternal.
Alright, third album here. I was going to fuck up and say sixth or fifth. So with that, band I'm showing here, of course, is Quartz, with, of course, with Stand Up and Fight. Now, again, Quartz were definitely from the 1970s, releasing their debut in 1977. Sadly, I don't own that one, but I'm still definitely looking out for a copy of that one as well. But of course, that album was actually produced by Tony Iommi. So you're going to kind of get a bit of that Black Sabbath influence here. This one, it's definitely a lot more harder rockin' than the debut, even though the debut is a great album for sure. But since I don't, and of course this is spotlighting, I had to definitely spotlight an album from Quartz anyways. Just a solid hard rockin' album, definitely from Quartz. Definitely here and there it has a 70s influence, but for the most part it's definitely going into that sort of 80s metal sound. Just all around great stuff here. Of course, the late keyboard and guitar player for Quartz, Jeff Nichols, of course, would go on, who played on the debut, would go on and do more stuff with Black Sabbath. But so again, it's just those Black Sabbath connections are there. So, and of course, I never really showed any Black Sabbath during these 70s hard and heavy videos. Only as an album of the week video I did, which was Sabotage, which the song Megalomania, the riff to that middle part or so when it goes into there is very similar to, of course, one of the riffs on Stand Up and Fight, which of course is Wildfire. You could tell that they definitely kind of lifted some of the riffing patterns and everything from the song Megalomania. So with that, good album. Don't want to spend too much time talking. So with that, hope you enjoy the sample. I'm getting to the next record album. Fourth album here, definitely another band that dates all the way back to the 1970s, really early 70s, like 1971. That's, of course, is Pentagram, with, of course, their debut album, even though it's titled Relentless. It was originally released back in 1985 as a self-titled album. Now, Pentagram's career is crazy. Basically, the only original person that was actually from the original Pentagram lineup from the 1970s is, of course, this singer. Oh, I'm forgetting his name. Also, excuse me, I got some allergies going on. Alright, who is it? Bobby Liebling. He's the only original member, really, connecting to the original Pentagram lineup from the early 1970s. Because of when he reformed Pentagram, which, of course, was as Death Row with drummer Joe Hasselvander and, of course, guitar player Victor Griffin, who were definitely not part of the original lineup from the 1970s. And the thing is, Pentagram had some name changes from like 1972 to like 1973. They were called Macabre, but then back in 1977 or 1978, they would rechange it back to Pentagram, but then really splitting up, and then reforming as Death Row. This demo was recorded in 1982 when they were called Death Row, but when they wanted to release it on vinyl under the Pentagram label, which was ran by Joe Hasselvander, they renamed themselves back to Pentagram, basically going back to the original name. So, and of course, a lot of these songs here were originally recorded or written as Pentagram all the way back to the 1970s, definitely being one of the songs here, like 20 Bucks Spin and everything else. So with that, and the whole production of the whole album, it sounds 1970s. This really just sounds like a long-lost album from like the 1970s, especially like 1973 or so. Like if this was released then, I would have immediately put the sound within the either early or mid-70s hard and heavy videos. I would have. This is just fantastic stuff. Very much similar to bands like Surlo Baltimore, Bang, definitely being one. Captain Beyond here and there, definitely they were influenced by them. Of course, Black Sabbath, but the thing is, if you listen to a lot of the earlier Pentagram demos and the singles and everything, it's not there. The Black Sabbath influence wasn't there because Bobby Liebling wasn't listening to any Black Sabbath apparently at the time when recording back in the 1970s. So in a way, the Black Sabbath influence really came from Victor Griffin, the guitar player. So with that, definitely a great debut album for sure from Pentagram. Just great doom metal, and I would say Pentagram were one of the godfathers of doom metal anyways, even though they were definitely formed early, almost around the same time when Black Sabbath released Master of Reality, which is definitely one of the first early doom albums, but Pentagram were definitely the ones that actually pushed that sort of genre forward. So with that, great debut, and so I hope you enjoy the sample if you've never heard of them. If you have, definitely great band. So it's time to get to the last album here, so let's get in and enjoy. Alright, last album here. When it comes to doom metal, and since doom metal was influenced by Black Sabbath, so it really has its 70s sound already implanted into the genre. It's one of the only genres these days that actually, especially the traditional doom bands, that actually have that 70s sound to them, and where you actually can get some of that sort of hard and heavy 70s. So definitely you have to definitely show some, and with the 1980s there weren't that many besides maybe St. Vitus and such, but this band out of Britain that were a part of the new wave of British heavy metal movement definitely are worthy of being in this series. And that's of course is Witchfinder General with their debut Death Penalty, and I don't think you need to hear me say anything about this one. This album is just, it's a classic piece of doom metal. Everything about this has a 70s feel. Everything has that Black Sabbath, real rich sound to it. Everything sounded like it could have easily been the follow-up to Master of Reality or Volume 4. Just great material here. Nothing but good stuff. And I don't want to spend too much time talking because Witchfinder General are just classic. Though they were formed in 1979, which is very, very late. But again, that's kind of typical for your new wave or British heavy metal band to be formed within the late 70s or early 80s. But so But the Thin Am itself kind of has that early 70s hard and heavy sound. Very similar to, again, to like Sirlo, Baltimore, Bang, Black Sabbath, and so on. So with that, this is definitely the last thing here to end off the video. So with that, I hope everyone enjoyed this one. And of course, I'll be back on Friday with, of course, probably with 2 videos. Was I supposed to let that one out of the bag? Though I didn't say what video would be. I did not say what the second one will be. I'm leaving that one up. Anyways, so with that, the video after this one will be on retro 70s bands from the 2000s, mostly 2010s. That'll be pretty cool, wouldn't it be? Would it be? Anyways, hope you enjoyed this one. So until then, this is Fifth Thrasher Sam out. I'll see you later. Take care, everyone. See you on Friday.
I wanna